Fort Worth is growing by leaps and bounds. We don't need any more public participation in development. We're having trouble keeping up with what we have. That's why we're having budget difficulties, is because our growth is exploding, and just like any privately owned company, you have to control your growth or it will actually send you bankrupt. And that's what's happening to Fort Worth right now. We need to get back to the basic core services of this city, or we will in fact be bankrupt, just like any private company would be when they try to grow too fast.
The Fort Worth business press has been a little bit more critical, and was critical of the choice of J.D. Granger as the director. And I think that privately a lot of people around town realize that this is a first-class pork project, boondoggle. But there are no doubt people involved that they don't want to offend. They're either social or business friends. This is a very connected town, and people are friends with people who are involved in some of these projects. They don't want to offend them. They don't want to undercut them in any way if they don't have to. Unless it becomes a real disaster, then I guess they might take a stance on it, but it's just not the Fort Worth way.
The media is supposed to be our fifth column. They're supposed to be the watchdog over government, not just stenographers for what's going on in government. I had a interview with a reporter for the Star-Telegram, and I asked him why he doesn't find it somewhat suspicious that every single board meeting that he attends, there's unanimous approval without discussion of every single issue that the board brings up. And he said he didn't feel that it was his job to ask those kind of questions. Well, I believe it is his job. He's not supposed to simply report what's going on. He should be going behind the scenes, trying to understand, well, if you're approving these things in this board meeting without discussion, did you ever discuss them? And if you did discuss them, were those discussions open to the public, so the public could understand the ramifications of handing out these million-dollar contracts to lobbyists and to contractors? Nobody knows really what's going on behind the scenes. Wouldn't a reporter want to know that?
And it's pretty hard to do anything when your only newspaper in town is beating the drums for it. And Star-Telegram could kill it if they wanted to.
To change the direction of the project or scale it back, I think the way it's going to have to be through the electoral process. We should have been able to vote on the river itself. There was a proposal that was gone. Every year the City Council has a questionnaire that they sort of circulate. And one of the questions that they've asked is, would you like to see a water feature developed on the river? And most people would say, and I think at one time it was quoted as 75%, but it's really closer to 2/3, said yes. But when Councilman Silcox inserted a follow-up question that said, well, would you like a feature, yes or no? And then, are you willing to pay for it? Over 50% of the people said no. Changing out the water board members is tough. It's a very close, tight clique that goes in. In the last election, less than, I think it was 3.6% of the voters turned out to vote. So you had the people that were the proponents of the project, supporters of the incumbents on the water board. They came out in large numbers.
Back when this project was promoted in 2004, 2005, a lot of people complained because it had not been voted on by the public. They foresaw a very large expense of tax money, whether it be local, city, county, federal, whatever. And they thought that a project of this dimension should be voted upon. And promoters were quick to tell them that, well, they did vote on it in the 2004 bond election because there was a $5 million provision for this bridge work over the Henderson Street Bridge. Well, there was also that provision was a sub part of the Proposition 1 in that bond program. In bond programs, you put everything you really want to get sold or to the public in Proposition 1, because that's where the street maintenance is and the sewers and drainage issues are in that proposition, and so they will vote for that in all likelihood, and you slip in these little things that support Trinity Uptown or something else, and they're not readily apparent to the average voter. So the voters really didn't know they were voting on Trinity Uptown project. It's never been put up for a vote, and if it were, it would probably fail.
Very interesting back in the day when they were proposing the other Trinity River project, which was the canal to Galveston. Again, very similar to what we're talking about here. Effectively, it's a project for economic development. Would have screwed up the ecology, horribly. The environment would have been completely torn up. All the wildlife and fish would have completely vanished. They got a vote on this, and interestingly, the people voted against the powers that be and were able to, sink that project. Interestingly, Fort Worth didn't disappear. The economy of Fort Worth has prospered since. So, they'll sell these programs as something that, doggone it, we absolutely need to have this project. We're going to be sunk without it. Well, guess what? Actually, we're going to be sunk with it. And I think we can see by recent history, it's not going to make much of a difference if we don't do this. In fact, it'll actually improve our economy.
Absolutely. There's been no vote held as far as to approve the Trinity River Vision Project. This has all been a closed, elected official monitored program. I mean, the city council, the Tarrant County government has all been involved, the water board. We've had Congressman Kay Granger involved, heavily involved as far as federal grants with this project. And then, that's the rest of the country paying for something here locally in Fort Worth. And again, it's not going to all the everyday citizens of Fort Worth. This is going to special interests that are people that are going to benefit financially from this.
It should be a standalone ballot issue that says Trinity River Uptown, Trinity River Vision, whatever, and have a price tag to it and allow the people to vote on that like they did the Arlington Cowboy Stadium.
In a city council election, you're lucky to have maybe 8 out of 10 or 8 out of 100 people vote. And so your influence that you can have on an election increases exponentially in a local race. If you go and vote, you're speaking for over almost 100 people that didn't vote. So the power that your vote has in these local elections is just incredible. And so you could cast the deciding vote in these elections. A lot of times it'll come down to 2 or 3 votes in a local election. And that's, the candidate we want in versus the incumbent that's been there for 10, 15, 20 years. And so just getting these people out and making the everyday citizen aware of what's going on can completely change the results of these elections coming in May. So that's something we want to do, is get out there, knock on doors, and support candidates that we believe will bring in a more focused and fiscally responsible local government.
Now, the solution is people do have a tendency to yell and to protest and to vote. If we can just get them off their couches and get them out there to speak out.
It took 16 months, but the city and neighbors entered into an agreement that saved a neighborhood, property, city infrastructure, money, and lives, proving it can be done. I've become more involved with the city and even made friends with the mayor. While our neighborhood was saved, nothing has been done to correct the flooding on the tributaries. It's not just Saltham City, and it's not just neighborhoods near creeks in danger. In all the floods researched, upstream development is cited as part of the problem. When you cover all the ground and impervious surface, the water has nowhere left to go. A smart man once said, "We are developing ourselves into a dilemma." The North Central Texas Council of Governments published a paper in 2002. It states, thus, the Trinity River as it flows through the urban core faces great extremes, with low flows composed almost totally of treated wastewater to massive floods with the potential for billions of dollars in damages and untold loss of life across its 240 square mile floodplain. Big Fossil Creek alone runs through Richland Hills, Haltom City, North Richland Hills, Fort Worth, Keller, Watauga, Saginaw, and Haslett. If it's been flooding for decades, why has nothing been done? The answer from the Corps of Engineers was lack of consistent funding, higher priority work, and technical shortcomings. What is higher priority than the safety of our citizens? Why is there no funding to correct the problems that have threatened property and lives for decades? If there are technical shortcomings in studying flood-prone tributaries of the river and watersheds, do we really want to move the river? The time has come to wake up and save ourselves, our lives, property, money, infrastructure, history, and water. We need your help to do so. Please join us before it's too late.
Long live the confluence.
Sink or swim, lose or win, coming against the current, slow go, undertow. One flood after another, up a creek without alley. Thought I'd always have her, but I found out rivers move about. Why did she have to leave? No man is an island. What goes upstream is gonna come down.